Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the third day of the International Faculty Development Program. Today, we are discussing a topic that's transforming the way we live, work, and teach: artificial intelligence. AI has touched every aspect of our life, from the way we communicate and make decisions to how we teach and learn. Rather than seeing AI as a challenge, it is crucial for us as educators to accept it as a powerful tool that can enhance classroom engagement, foster creativity, and inspire innovation. The key lies in learning. To guide us on this journey, we are privileged to have with us Dr. Crocetti, a renowned expert who will share his insights on leveraging AI to transform classroom engagement. Before we start the session, let us have a look at the profile of Dr. Crocetti.
Dr. Giancarlo Crocetti is an assistant professor of data science at St. John's University, where he focuses on the impact of AI on society and pedagogy. Before joining St. John's, Dr. Crocetti spent over 18 years as a senior associate director at Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals, leading the data science and advanced AI capability for the medical organization. With extensive experience in natural language processing, Dr. Crocetti now concentrates on applying generative AI to prepare students for success in the future workforce. His unique blend of industry experience and academic expertise allows him to bridge the gap between the cutting edge AI technology and the real world applications in education. Don Bosco College welcomes you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, and we are looking forward to listen to you. Over to you, Doctor.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you. Excellent presentation. I didn't even know that I was having an introduction that great. So you put a lot of pressure on me. I never consider myself an expert. It's always a danger area. But thank you. And I will start sharing my screen. So let's see. And let me know if this works.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you so much once again for this warm welcome in these sessions. And I understand that, the point where we join here and why we're here today is because as educators, when we look at AI, we face this dichotomy of things. We have exciting opportunities, but also unique challenge with this technology. And here is a technology I will mention mainly ChatGPT because it's the exemplar, so to speak, of all the large language model or generative AI in general. But it doesn't really matter. When I mention ChatGPT or general AI, I referring to the broader set of tools that are available over there. So today what I want to do, it's really not a lecture. It's really a way to share with you those mainly those three aspects of, you can consider this my personal journey to adapt to this definitely disruptive technology. So I really want to understand the fears surrounding AI adoption, because probably all of you, this might have been the first reactions when we reach this level of advancements, because to be honest, I didn't expect to see this kind of AI in my lifetime. So it took me completely by surprise. Then I will look at, once we tame a little bit of fears, I want to share with you the opportunities that this technology offers, both faculty and students. And then eventually, how can we use AI to improve the learning of the student? Because as a teacher, we are there. We want to take care of the student, especially focus on the learning aspect, and especially addressing this concern about cheating, right? This is always something that is on our mind. So this is not a progression. So I will not go through this number 1, number 2, number 3, but you can think of the content will touch upon those 3 major areas. And I really hope, that's really my hope, that by the end of this session, I was able to give you some actionable, let's call it insight. You can be confident, incorporate AI into your teaching. So I will start by addressing the fears that many of us have in integrating AI into educations. And, there are many concerns, but usually these range from the potential loss of creativity in students. Maybe you might have ethical issues such as biases in AI-generated content. And, educators, as an educator, we also worry about the diminishing role of these human interactions in learning. And maybe there is a fear that we are delegating too much to AI, so much so that maybe students might lose the ability to think critically. And all of those are valid concerns, and it's important to acknowledge them. But today, especially, I will focus on separating those fears from, to a certain sense, reality. And I want to provide a clarity how AI can complement rather than replace our work. So let's take a moment to explore how AI fits into the educational landscape, and more importantly, how it enhances our roles rather than replacing us. So first of all, AI complements us in a way that might taking over routine and time-consuming tasks. For example, grading, generating ideas from lesson plans. Those are all use cases in which AI can actually be very beneficial to all of us. And the reason why is because it can free us to focus on what we do best. And what we do best is be creative, empathetic, and really want to foster critical thinking in our students. And this was highlighted in a recent report by the US Department of Education, which the report itself states that these collaborations can allow us to channel our energy where is most impactful. And this is a good reading. If you have time, it's quite a large report, but it's very, very useful. Now, a few days ago, this is really fresh off press, there was these articles, Wire magazine, and the title was something like AI cannot replace teaching, but it can make it better. And the author of this article explained how AI companies, actually, they are the one that recognize how it is hard for AI to replace teacher. And I have a quote here that, if I remember correctly, goes something like this. There is something deeply profound about these human communication interactions between teacher and students that allow these flesh and blood, they use this term, very guttery, flesh and blood teachers to quickly spot and address things like confusions that might flag interest in real time. And AI doesn't possess this ability. It seems like this ability is, as of today, still unique human qualities that are really at the core to effective teaching. So we go back to this concept of emotional intelligence, which is the ability to make these nuanced decisions to foster creativity in students. And seems like, according to these articles, those are qualities that are irreplaceable by AI. And finally, we can think of AI really as a collaborative partner. And I think this is the right way for a teacher to look at AI. AI is tools, so that tools like ChatGPT and other generative AI systems can really enhance classroom engagement and enable this personalized learning. They do this by simply give access to the students to tailored support, but also allowing us to innovate in how we teach. And this was really the core of these articles that is being reviewed by Cecilia Chen and Louisa Tse from the University of Hong Kong. So, this will give us a perspective on AI that can be quite different of your current understanding. And I think the takeaway message here is that AI is a tool and is not capable, at least yet, of replacing this nuanced, empathetic, and creative aspect of teaching that seems like only human beings can do. Instead, it can enhance those quality, and by taking over those handling, repetitive tasks or sparking new teaching ideas that you can quickly elaborate through those AI. So I think the a healthier way of thinking of AI is really as a co-pilot, using a term that Microsoft actually turned into a brand, right? Rather than a competitor. And I think this mindset shift is a key for you to unlock the potential of AI. Now, how, though, can we do this? So I would like to touch a little bit what AI can do for us as educators. I think the most important things that you must learn is to communicate AI effectively and understand how, and the way we communicate with AI is really to understand how we can create a good prompt, because the prompt is the way, the communication channels that you have with AI. Now, this is not a presentation on prompt engineering, so I will not go into details, but I will use a tool that was developed by Teddy Zrovros, who is a senior lecturer of public policies at the Harvard Kennedy School, and uses a very simple acronym, TIC, that stands for task, instructions, and context. And he basically put together the key element of a prompt, and if you introduce those elements, you're guaranteed to have included the most important element in any AI-supported task. So let's start with the task. The task, basically, the task component of a prompt tells the AI what you want and what does the AI need to do for you. So don't forget this aspect. The AI is an assistant that is an extension of yourself. Then we have the instructions, and the instructions tell AI how you want to perform the task. And finally, the context provides all the information the AI needs to carry out the task and follow the instruction. Now, traditionally, the order is context, task, and instructions, but in general, the order doesn't really matter because the way those three elements are processed are independently from the order. So let me give you an example of a prompt, right? So let's say that the objective is to create a class plan. And I picked up this very humanistic topic, decision-making under uncertainty. You want to create a sessions on this class that focus on the President Kennedy's decisions using the Cuba Missile Crisis. So let's look at this context. I will not read through, but I will highlight those most important elements. So you're telling the AI that you're teaching a course, you give the details of this course, in this case, thinking analytically in a certain world. And you also give some information, basic information, background information about your students. The students are at the master level. They are enrolled in a master in public policies. And you also say that most of the students are working students, right, with several years of work experience. And in addition, you also want, okay, what do I want to achieve with this? And the goal is to really help students think more analytically. And you provide a better background, say why you want to do that, right? And you also indirectly are giving a persona. So you're telling the AI that you are a teacher, and this will help AI to tune the response accordingly. And I really recommend you to try. The best way of doing this is to try it out. So now this is the context. One element of this TIC methodology, let's put that way. Now, the TIC methodology is not really an official methodology. Probably there will be a prompt engineering course that mentions TIC. But I think actually, because it was created by educators, it's really helpful for you to start using AI. So now let's focus on the instructions, right? So the objective is remain the same. And now I want to say, okay, that was the context. That's why I'm talking to you today. And I want to give some instructions of how I want the AI to create these sessions, right? So that's why you are in the driving seat. You are not really delegating too much of AI, say, oh, I have no clue what I'm doing, you figure it out, right? No, you are the expert here. You're telling AI exactly what you want. So in this case, as instruction, we want to open up the course with an example of decision making. You provide a focus on President Kennedy's during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you specify all the things that you want to have. Has to be about decision making under uncertainty. I want you to use an example of decision trees, consider the risks, put some elements of game theory because you want to make these sessions engaging, and also specify what happens when a group of people are together, and what happens in the decision-making process, right? And I also want to avoid biases in the group decision making. So all these elements must go. So here, you have to elaborate enough to contain specific elements that we listed before. But I also open up the example by asking AI to add anything that might be relevant to the strengthening the example, right? I'm finish up this instruction by saying, hey, this is what I want. But if you know anything more, please, by any means, add those examples in these sessions. So now we have the context, the instructions in place. Now we want to look at the task ahead. Now, the task must be as specific as possible, and then extended to provide more detail on the output. Now, you notice here that always, this is my habit, I always use the please in my interaction with the machines, because to be honest, I don't know if machines will become conscious at a certain time, and maybe they're gonna take over the world. And maybe they're going to remember that I was very kind toward them, and they are not going to zap me when they're going to take over the world. So I always say, please here, please there, and so forth, right? You never know. But here, in addition of this outline, I'm providing those informations on the duration of the sessions, right? 60-minute sessions, and the fact that I want these sessions to be interactive. And here you can provide more detail on the type of interaction you desire. Maybe you want to have a poll, you want to have a quick Q&A, maybe you can have a group activity and so forth, whatever works with your style. And the last thing I want to point out here is asking the AI to recommend resources. So now this is very important because I want to prepare for this class, right? I want to make sure that whatever is be mentioned in these sessions, I'm familiar with this content, because even though we are experts, sometimes we don't know all the body of knowledge out there. And one thing I always do is to make sure the resources are factual. Probably all of you have heard about these hallucination problems of large language model. It's a reality, it's happening. It's just built up in the way those model works. But I always add this kind of last sentence here, right? And this sentence can be formulated in different ways, but I usually follow this formula, meaning that if I want to create link resources, I want the large language model to provide the links and to make sure that those links are pointing to real content. And by doing that, you're forcing the AI to revisit those answers. So it provides the output and then revisit these answers and tries out those links so that those links are real. And this is very useful to make the content factual. Now, it might still happen that maybe out of 10 links, one is hallucinated, and that's fine. You can just decide to remove it, or in the next iteration, you say, hey, there is an hallucinated link over here. Make sure that you are including anything from this hallucination in the content, or you can say replace this with some other factual link. So this works very well with me. Usually I don't need to do many iterations to solve this problem of hallucination. So hallucination is there, can be controlled. It can be controlled through prompting. Now, companies for more serious issues, because you are still in control here, put this concept of guardrailing around, meaning that they are guardrailing the answer of a large language model, which means that the answer will be processed separately from the large language model. But it's just another level of security in order to remove any hallucinations. Okay. Now, before, I stated that to use AI as a tool, but to be honest, AI is more than a tool, right? So at the most basic level, you must use AI as an assistant. And if you want to start harvesting the value that this technology offered. So as an assistant, AI, for example, is very good in helping you during the evaluation process of students, because evaluating assignments is a very time-consuming task, and unless your learning systems has, I don't know, quizzes that are automatically evaluated through the learning system. In that case, it's very easy, but quizzes sometimes is too restrictive. So in general, I would not recommend to delegate the entire evaluation process to the AI. For example, I would not use AI to grade students, right? So I strongly recommend you not to use AI to directly grade students, the final grade, because grading is such a complex activity that might take in consideration many factors that cannot be completely expressed in a prompt, and not even from the assessments, because it's the whole history of the students. So if you have a formal methodology to grade, you can definitely ask the model to provide a draft of the grading for your review. So what I'm saying here is do not grade student purely based on the AI output. So there is a better use of AI. So let's say that you want to score the work of students based on well-defined metrics. And here you can definitely use the tick approach to instruct AI to generate, for example, as in this case, a table with scores in areas of interest. So this example is about an essay, right? So probably it's the hardest type, the more time-consuming assessments that you can have in a student's an open text essay. So in this case, the grading can be in areas like the grammar, the fact whether or not they use factual statements, if those statements can be related back to a particular text, for example, that you used, or something else, strengths of the arguments in the essays, and so forth, right? And this is really where you put your experience, you turn your experience into a prompt to ask your assistants to help you here. So I also want to provide a good context, so the AI has enough information on how to process the tasks. And here I specify the fact that you are a professor, you are teaching ancient history, the fact that you teach to the undergraduate students, for example, and I even be more specific here, freshmen, right, that are enrolled in a specific program. So I want to be very specific here. You can add as much useful information as possible. Now, if you look at the information out there, especially in prompt engineering, there is this tendency to say the more information as possible, the better. But it is important for me to point out that you need to provide useful information and not too much embellishment words, because those embellishment words might create false attentions in the prompt, and you can generate a suboptimal results. So in the instruction, you are telling to read the essays that you can attach to this prompt, and also provide the details on the graded areas. So I mentioned this before, so you might have start to be familiar with this tick process, so I will not add anything else here. Now, the task is interesting here because not only I'm telling AI what to do, but also, in a sense, how to format the output. I want a table that contains the scores in those various grading areas for each student. And I also say, well, not only that, I also want to have, extra columns. And those extra columns will contain the total score and the average. And those two extra informations are useful to give you an idea on how the students performs across all these areas. Oops, sorry, I went too far. So this works better here. And once again, I also give an idea of the range of the grades. It contains a grade between 0 and 100. 0 is the lowest grade with poor work done, 100 the highest grade, exceptional work. And AI actually, because large language model have a very powerful way of dealing with language that really understand, and I put understand in quotes here, how go from instructions to results. So they're very good. We are really taking advantage of this ability of the large language model to understand what we want and execute. Okay, so one of the most recurring comments I'm hearing, so that was one way, for example, of using AI to help you as an assistant, right? So now I'm gonna switch a little bit gear here and address these fears of cheating, which is real, happened to me, and I had to spend quite a few amount of time to figure out what to do about it, right? Because if students can cheat, they cheat, and because they can use AI on their phones, computers, any other possible way. So I want to start saying that the AI detection tools out there are totally unreliable. So if you are thinking, for example, you administer an essay, and you want to check whether or not the essay is being AI written, there are a lot of AI detection tools out there, but really are unreliable. They don't tell you the whole story. And I have a very good example here because I wrote a paper together with 3 PhD students, and we submitted this paper in a well-known journal, and it was sent back to us because their AI detection tools detected 70% of that paper was AI generated. And we were completely oblivious to this, say, what's happening here? Because we put so much time to painstakingly collaborate on the paper, the narrative, because there were 4 people and we had to align the narrative. So we were very disappointed. So this is a complex topic, but maybe it deserves its own presentations. But here, one thing I'm saying is that those AI tools are reliable. So what to do about it? Well, contrary to what people might think, actually, I teach my students to be very proficient in AI. So I usually ask them to familiarize with generative AI technologies and prompt engineering. And for this reason, actually, I created several courses. There is even one course on Udemy, free. It's usually taken by 1,000 students each month, which is actually went beyond my imaginations. But I think it's important to know how the students need to use AI, because to be honest, those are skills that will be required by future employers. So at this point, I'm adding problems to myself, right? I want to solve the problem of cheating. How can I do that if I teach my students to be even more proficient in using AI? Now, I'm going to open up a parenthesis here because I think cheating is really the results of this desire for a top grade, right? And on the other side, there is also these fears of a bad grade that might lower the GPA. So that's really the source of cheating. So in my classes, I stress the value of learning And it's very unfortunate that everything revolves around grades in a university rather than learning. So I want to take the fear out of the equations and really focus on learning, so that an assignment is really not different than a conversations that I might have during the class. Now, this works very well, but definitely does not remove the desire of cheating, because at the end, the fear of failure in a test is so strong that even when this fear goes away, it is immediately replaced with the desire of a top grade. It's just amazing how human nature works. So this is good to have, but doesn't definitely solve this problem. So what to do? The problem still remains. So what I try next is to create what I call the AI proof assignment. And here you can be very creative. And I'm sharing here 3 solutions that I found to work very well with me. The first one is really to have interactive quizzes during the class. And this is the modality that I love the most. So how does it work? Well, I set up a series of online quizzes that I use to my class. And I test this, I use those quizzes to test the students, or actually as an opportunity to improve learning. So what I give the students is a QR code, because they love to use their smartphones, and then they log in into this platform, whatever platform you are using, and they need to answer real-time questions that I put on the screen. And this is kind of fun, because there's also a leaderboard ranking, and that creates a tension of the students, kind of competitions. And what happens is that they completely forget to cheat. So they are so into this kind of learning game, they are not interested anymore to spend time in asking the right questions, so forth. They just want to interact. And it's also hard for, when I put those questions on the screen, to use AI, because those questions are timed. So they only have 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds to answer, and students just love this. And there are several companies out there that provide this tool. And many times they offer either educators accounts or free accounts, completely free account options that are enough to start using these tools even in a real class during the semester. So definitely something that you would look for. And I mentioned here class questions because it's a free tool that's being created by students that you definitely can use. So that's the one thing you can do to remove the pressure of using AI. So another option that worked very well for me was to administer quizzes using a lockdown browser. And usually this is also an option available in any learning platforms. Canvas has it, Blackboard has it, and so forth. But not only that, that doesn't solve the problems. What I do then is to create questions, and the question uses many visuals as possible. And then when I populate the quiz, I simply pass the image containing both the visual and text, so that they cannot simply copy and paste, for example, in a chat with another Windows to ChatGPT. So it's very hard to do that. And also because it's mainly a visual questions, they make it hard to type this question into their smartphone, because it's going to take too much time. And because they have to explain the AI what the question is in visual terms, and that is not easy. And this worked very well. And I saw a dramatic effect, because in a normal quiz, I definitely saw people were cheating. So this prompted me to use this other method, and I saw a dramatic effect on this. So this works very well. So you can maintain the integrity of the quiz and make it hard for the students to basically to cheat. So that's definitely another way you can solve this problem. And finally, I might give an assignment or project, and I let them use AI as much as they want, right? And the reason is there is a catch, because I ask them, I usually organize students in teams, and I ask them to present to the class at the end of these assignments. So this is the curveball. So I force the students to learn, even though the work is the result of AI. So I say, if you create everything with AI, so be it. It's not an issue for me, but you got to learn. And the way I measure that is to ask them to present, because only to the presentation the students must learn and own that topic, because I asked the entire class to ask questions during the presentation. So we kind of grilled them so they know that. So they really get familiar with the topic. So those are the three methods I currently use to minimize kind of this temptation of using AI for cheating, and turn AI into a tool for learning. Probably they're not the only way, but I started to have a pretty good experience with those three methodologies, and they work very well for me. So now it's pretty easy for me to put those things together. I spend a lot of time to figure it out and tune those things, but for now seems to work very well. So AI as a tool for you to develop content, to help you as an assistant to grading students. AI as a tool for learning. Let's see now how AI can be used in the classroom, because classrooms is really a special place. We are together with the students at the same time, and we exchange and share this extraordinary process of learning, right? This is the true advantage of synchronous classes. So how can we use AI here? Well, you can, for example, set a topic for the day and ask students to use AI to introduce this topic and answer any questions that come up. So I use this one. So I have an introduction of the topic, and then I open up the class for discussions, and I allow them to use AI for further their view on the subject. So this has two benefits. Not only will provide an opportunity for active learning because they have to be engaged, but also will provide a clear experience in a sense of the strength and weakness of AI. So in my classes, I have a very Socratic method of discussions, and I have used this method many times, especially when introducing new topics. So I provide an introduction on the topic, and then I open up the floor for discussion and further elaboration on the subject. So I throw the ball back to the students. And one thing I notice is that at the beginning, there is this frenzy of asking ChatGPT. And students focus on the discussion and start providing their feedback using whatever ChatGPT told them. And when they got stuck in a point of the conversation, I might be the one say, hey, can anybody ask Dr. ChatGPT about this topic, to move the dialogue forward? And the students really like this approach because they feel there are an active element of the learning process. And sometimes I notice that they completely are into the discussion that they completely forget to use even ChatGPT. Another activity I do in class is to problem solving with AI. So in the first one, I use AI to further their understanding on a topic because, especially in certain topics, AI is very good, has a very good body of knowledge. This one, I used AI for problem solving. So this activity, I divide the class into groups, and I ask them to fully solve a problem using AI tool, whatever they choose. Some may choose ChatGPT, some other, I don't know, Claude, some other Gemini, and so forth. It doesn't really matter, any tool that you like to use. And I give about 20 minutes to solve the problem, sometimes less, sometimes more, but no more than 30 minutes. Then I randomly start selecting teams and ask them to share the results with the class and even the prompt they use to solve the problem. And this creates a very engaging and safe place for healthy argumentations, because I know for sure that AI for that particular problem will only provide an imperfect solution. So that still gives me an opportunity to further the argumentations. And it really gives me a good opportunity for assessing students real time. So those are really focused on the problem solving activities AI. Then for the one of you that are more in the computer science or data science, use AI in coding skill. And here I recently published the results, actually is under review right now, on experiments. And the experiments was a control experiment. And we wanted to know if does generative AI improves coding skills for data science students. So we organized the students in groups, and they had to build up a very complex application that I knew they didn't have the skills for that. So we measured the skill before the treatment in programming. Then we trained them in generative AI, and prompt engineering was a very in-depth training. And then we asked them to solve these problems, and we measure their skills after the treatment and this experience. And we noticed that an improvement, a statistical significant improvement in certain skill area. So this is another way that you can use AI if you have coding assignments. Okay, so I can start wrapping up these presentations, and let me focus on how we can move forward as educators in integrating AI into our teaching so that is effective. So I would say that the first thing to remember that AI is just a tool, and you can use it to enhance your teaching rather than replacing it. Take full advantage of this by developing new content, outlines, and usually what I do is that if I have a topic in mind, I ask AI to come up with an outline. I review the outline. I change usually things that I like more or I feel is missing. Then with the finalized outline, I give AI a new prompt that says, okay, now develop a presentation. And I give detailed presentation, the number of slides they want, the durations, how deep is to go, and so forth. I take the output and then I start developing my content on my own. I really enjoy creating my content because I give my personal spin, but definitely that process takes out a good amount of time for me to, it really helps me to develop the content. So AI, but there is still these human elements of the education, the empathy, the creativity, the mentorships, which are irreplaceable, right? So I think by treating AI as an assistant or copilot, you really can use it to amplify our impact on the classroom. So be on the driver's seat. The second thing I will recommend is to start small, right? You don't have to overhaul your entire teaching approach overnight, and you can start by experimenting with AI in the most impactful areas, whatever that area is. Maybe it's generating quiz, like generating the questions, or maybe brainstorming lesson ideas. Maybe you use it to summarize students' feedback. Whatever it is, start with that and use that use case to build up experience with AI until you feel comfortable. And gradual integration allows you to explore the potential of these tools and be really not only move to a comfortable place, but really be comfortable with those tools. And finally, make your students part of this revolution. Don't keep them out. This is a process that needs to be shared with everybody, the students, your colleagues. That's why I'm here today. And collaboration is really critical because it allows you to become confident and build a robust framework for AI in education. This ensures that AI supports all educators and students, not just a selected few. And the future of education is not about replacing human effort, but really enhancing it. And AI can be a very good assistant to achieve that goal. And if that's the case, so be it. So we can concentrate on what truly matters, right? We can focus on instead of spending time on lesser inspiring things, we can focus on inspiring students, mentoring them, empowering our students so they can realize their vocations. That's really why we are there. So once again, there is this message of engaging students and use AI as a tool. Okay, so I was in time in terms of my 45 minutes time that I dedicated to myself. And definitely, I would like to open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Crocetti, for the wonderful session. I'm sure the approach has to be changed, like taking AI as an assistant, and that would make the difference. And the process of the tick method of getting information or using ChatGPT is surely going to help us from planning for our classes, evaluating, and also in engaging the classes. We have some questions from our participants. The first question that they have asked is, how can we make sure using AI in education helps students and teachers connect better instead of making them feel more distant?
Yeah, so this is actually, thank you for these questions. I mean, this goes to the core, right? I mentioned the classrooms is this magical place. So I think that that's more the art part and not the science part. So we need to develop those antennas and muscles so that I mentioned the last point of the slide before, students are in the process. Don't exclude them. Bring it in. Make sure that you during this process involve the students, and it's fun. So you might even ask the students, hey, you know, I need to develop, and I have done that actually, by the way. I need to develop this new section of the course. Maybe it's a special assignments that you have, you bring them into these explorations, so they are not left out. So bring AI in the class, but be in the driving seat. So be there and bring them in this journey. You have to be the captain of your classroom. Only by doing that, you would not lose students and all these things becoming just an exercise. Because if you delegate too much also on AI, then the question is, what is the value that you bring to the class if the learning can be done completely by AI? So this is something that you need to focus on yourself. It's a really introspective things and ask you, who am I? So I think this is a good thing for educators, because allows you to discover, you know, your what is the core value that you bring. So it's a challenge, but I think also it's useful.
So the next question that we have is, students may generate AI-generated assignments and add a few mistakes, be it syntactic or lexical errors, just to make it original. How do we deal with this?
I mean, it's I can spot, after you start working with AI, you can spot right away if an essay is written by AI. There is a certain nuances and terminology. A good example, if an essay ends with conclusions, you know right away, because that's the classic AI generative essays, because it has these very bullety points and way of structure the essay. So if the essay, it's a kind of a, how can I say, if the whole process is you give the assessments, you receive the assessment, you read the assessment and says, okay, this is AI generated, then you are in the losing part, because students will teach. So you have to change. You cannot proceed in the traditional way. Something has to change in the way you assess students. So if you're using essays, then you have to turn the essay into something else. Have a discussion in the class. As I say, when I created that specific methodology and say, I just let them go use AI, but the point is that they need to own the topics. That's the only way when you can guarantee learning. I don't care if they use generative AI, if they learn something about it, but I want to make sure that the learning is there. So when you receive the essay and you stop by saying, oh, this was AI generated or not, then you are, both of you, on the losing part. You lose because the students use AI, and the student lose because didn't learn. So you need to do something else, and that something else is to make sure that the learning happened. How you do that depends on you, but usually what I do, I created another part of the assignments where they need to explain either to the class or formally to you in some certain way to a presentations that learn happened. This is something that you need to develop And I provided you some example, but it really depends on something that you need to tune up for it. But don't stop there. Something has to change.
And learning has to continue.
And learning has to continue.
Now, I'm just going to club the next 2 or 3 questions together. The questions are, please would you suggest some reliable AI tools for generating PPT, for creating quiz, for classroom engagement, for teaching learning experience?
Yeah, so 2 different things. Any language model, be it ChatGPT, be it Claude, lesser Gemini, because Gemini is more for coding, are very good in creating quizzes. So if you ask, do a prompt that says, create, I don't know, 50 questions on these specific topics. The question is to be multiple choice or whatever it is. It does a very good job. So that one, actually, I do that. Of course, if I generate a quiz with generative AI, it also means that that quiz can be answered by generative AI. So you have to put that quiz in an environment that avoids cheating, as I mentioned before, lockdown browsers, visual content, and so forth. So you can definitely do that. The other part of the questions, AI for PowerPoint presentations, that you're out of luck, because despite many claims, and I tried to do this many times, there is not a good tool for creating good presentations. Now, I tend to be very visuals in my presentations, meaning that I have very little textual content. I rely more on communications. So for me, I couldn't find a good tool for the automatic generations. And usually what I do is to create a good outline that AI helps me. I always change the outline many times, because I have my own take on the way on the topics and the list of topics. I started to build up the skeleton of a presentations. Sometimes I've even asked to create a PowerPoint presentations, which is basically the text created in a PPTX, so it's not really that helpful. So I usually rarely go more than outline. I still create most of the presentation for myself. Now, I have to say, I didn't mention this, that I use, though, quite a lot, very helpful AI in adding narration to my slides. So what I do, I create the slides, I use the notes for the stuff I want to say, and I use AI tools like 11 Labs, for example, or AIGen, to automatically narrate the slides, so that I upload in my learning system the video with the slides, and that was very helpful. That saved tons of time. Helpful, but you still have to create your content, and that's something I totally enjoy, because I found having control on the content is the best learning experience, because there is no way the AI knows your nuances. So I would say, out of luck over there, we still need to do work.
Thank you. So yes, we have to have, otherwise the PPT does not become our work. So we do have one more question in the same line. Which is a reliable tool to check how much content is generated by AI?
Yeah, I mentioned this. Unfortunately, I mean, there are many, from ChatGPT Zero ChatGPT, Quilt AI. I mean, there are many out there. Even Grammarly. There is a very nice tool that I used to correct grammars and other maybe explanatory errors and so forth, which is Grammarly, which is very useful. And Grammarly itself has these AI detectors, but AI detectors, as I say, is a very unreliable. They have a lot of false positive. And sometimes they are as sophisticated as telling you that 70% of the text is being AI generated. And they even highlight the part of text that they think has been AI generated. So, but I would say the opposite. So if AI tools are not good to detect AI, they are very good in detecting human-generated text. So I will switch the question to say, instead of asking if a text was AI-generated, ask if a text was human-generated. They have, actually seems like there are many studies that says that is more reliable. So you can upload a text documents in ChatGPT, for example, and ask, can you score this text to see if it's human generated, and you might have a better output.
That's a different perspective, and we're sure it'll help. The next question, are there any ethical issues faced when using AI as an assistant in modern education?
That's a tough one, in the sense that ethical. So by ethical, I mean, don't do harm, right? That's the basic line of ethic. So I would say, from an ethical perspective, no, unless the only harm I can see is that if you generate content that you don't review, you might end up providing incorrect information. So I see that as a harm to the students, because they learn something that it's not factual. Other than that, but this could be, and I see this all the time. But all of you are expert in your own area. So when you see something, you definitely, how many times I have fun with the ChatGPT when he tells me something, I say, I don't think that is correct. And the answer say, oh, you are perfectly right in this one. So even the language model recognizes that sometimes it's totally out of line. So I would say, if you use AI, that is one area that you have to be careful, that potentially is unethical. But in terms of generating content, any content generated through AI belongs to the public. So in terms of copyright, for example, there is no issue here. Even the images and so forth, right? Other than that, I don't see any other issue. Oh, another issue is, yes, there is another ethical issue, is that don't use any personal identifiable information. And there is really a subtlety here, because if you use ChatGPT, for example, but it's true for anyone, usually a large language model has a user interface that you can use to your interactions. So you go to ChatGPT, there is this chat kind of user interface. So any information you put over there, you give the right to OpenAI to use that information. So you have to be very careful there. So don't put any personal identifiable informations, any competitive information that belongs to university and so forth. Don't do that. If you use the same language model through their API, so you're building up an application that communicates with a large language model through APIs, meaning not through that interface, then OpenAI cannot use that information. So there is this dual view on the use of information. So over there is safe to use internal data, but be aware of that difference.
We have to be careful about the data that we put in.
Absolutely.
And at times we feel that AI gets to know more about us through the interactions. It kind of gives us what we expect over a period of time. And the next question we have is, how much of AI is allowed in research? And how do I make sure my original content does not show as AI generated?
Well, that's actually one area that we don't have an answer yet. And in fact, I'm about to make a presentation on these very topics, because it's, journals are simply using this AI detector, which I said before is completely unreliable. But they are just saying, that's it, it's your responsibility, which I think is not correct, because my answer is, okay, I use AI, for example, to write a content, which is not different from me to use graduate students to write a paper, right? It's not different. Just replacing a graduate students with AI. His name is not going to be there. The AI is not going to be there, even though you should disclaim that you're using AI. So what is the difference? I think the fear is that okay, I'm writing, if I'm using AI just for writing purposes, I think there is nothing wrong with it. If I use AI to completely create a research, then it's definitely a problem there, because I open up the Pandora box of, it's not factual anymore, right? It's not, I didn't run an experiment, I just made up these things, and that's a true concern. But that difference cannot be solved by simply say, don't use AI. I think it's a very weak and naive way of solving this problem. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you, and probably I don't see a strong debate happening yet in research. So I hope that I'm going to open up that discussion. Hopefully, I mean, I'm nobody in the world, but I can always give my opinion in those scholarly conferences. I'm definitely going to do that. But unfortunately, as of today, we don't have an answer.
Probably this would be the last question for the day. If we have a few more questions. No? The question is, how do we reconcile the use of AI in a field as critical thinking in literature? Does it not defeat the very purpose?
Yes and no, in the sense that no, because I use, for example, in research, I use AI as a brainstorming. So AI has this incredible, useful ability to make connections where they're not. So sometimes we are so blinded in our research that we don't see connections. And a good example will be, if you notice, if I make actually a map, a concept map of all the research, you will see that the research are really siloed. There is the research in computer science, there is the research in English literature, there is the research in archaeology, and so forth. Very little interdisciplinary. And AI, I think it's a very good tool that starts seeing those patterns. And it's not a coincidence that AI is being used, for example, in medicine to create new drugs. And even though we still need to see if it's going to be successful at the end, but the few compounds that have been completely AI generated are those compounds that they look at the biological pathways of diseases, say, hey, there is a connection over there that biologists and chemists never saw before. So I think that's something that you can use at your advantage in research and stop there. So I use AI for brainstorming and test an idea, but then the hard work needs to be done, right? You need to run the experiments, you need to do these things. So as I said before, I don't see anything wrong in writing something with AI as long as the supported research come from us, right? So I see a really good opportunity over there, and I use it in research to just come up with idea. It's a wonderful tool. It's so much so that I actually creating a tool with my students for our university, and I will be happy to share around once this works for research, AI research purposes.
That would be really great, Professor.
Another way is literature review. It's such a time consuming that when I found article of interest, and I also use AI to help me in that, I take all these articles, put in AI and say, give me a summary, or actually write a summary review, because I'm familiar with this work. I don't need to spend so much time in writing the literature review. So use AI for that. It's very good.
Thank you, Professor. The last question. I feel AI has reduced the thinking capability of students and even teachers, though it makes the classes interesting. Your thought on this?
So teacher, not at all, because I use AI so many ways and open up my mind that says, oh my God, I see opportunity there, I see opportunity there, and I see these connections. So it's really fertile, help me to do, to really broaden my, even my research fields. And as mentioned before, I use all the time. Actually, I'm more prolific now as a scholar than before, for sure. So I don't see that as a problem. For the students, if you're delegating, if you're using just AI to delegate learning, then yes, you're actually doing a disservice to the students. And that's why I'm saying be on the driver's seat, because nobody will stop AI. It's going to happen, it will happen. And the question we need to ask ourselves is that how can we be better than AI? So AI plus teacher needs to be better than just AI. And that's something that I push back to you. You have to figure it out. And I help you that I gave you some ideas on how to do that.
Thank you, Professor. I'm sure this session has helped make sure that the teachers are in the driving seat with the AI. Thank you for your patience. I would like to request Dr. Maria to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Binu. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Giancarlo Crocetti for his exceptional guidance during today's session on leveraging AI to transform classroom engagement. Your in-depth understanding of AI, innovative perspectives, and practical strategies have significantly enhanced our knowledge of integrating technology into education and inspired us to adopt dynamic approaches for engaging learners. We deeply appreciate your valuable contributions, which have made the session truly memorable. Thank you, Professor. We also thank all the participants for their enthusiastic involvement, which added to the success of the session. Kindly ensure that the feedback forms are completed and submitted by 11 p.m. on the same day. Looking forward to another impactful session tomorrow. See you all then. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.